is a cult classic, paving the way for some of the best and worst horror films in existence. Known not only for an iconic and off-putting editing style, but for increasingly terrible sequels that bring a tear to the eye, not from fear, but from laughter. Despite the current state of the Saw franchise, fans can still appreciate the thought and intrigue behind the films, where the writers are forced to figure out how to include John Kramer, a dead man by the third film, and how to top the kills in the last movie, creating games often more baffling than terrifying, although occasionally nailing down one solid kill that keeps the community buzzing. The lore behind Saw has taken a beating over the last 2 decades, with movies having different writers, producers, and directors, all attempting to replicate the original, leading to often confusing and contradictory mysteries, the most infamous being Adam's Key. Adam is the co-protagonist of the original 2004 Saw movie alongside Dr. Lawrence. A majority of the movie takes place watching the two men, trapped in a horribly disgusting bathroom, argue in their best attempts at American accents.
Someone there? Hey!
The opening scene of the movie focuses on Adam waking up in a half-filled bathtub. In a state of panic, he accidentally knocks the bathtub stopper loose, and a key is drained alongside the dirty water. It's good writing, foreshadowing his character's future and the ending of the movie, although the audience will quickly forget about the key as the rest of the movie unfolds, leaving the final reveal until the last 5 minutes. And that key still arises in conversation around the Saw movies today. Why did Kramer put the key there in the first place? Could Adam have escaped the entire time? Did Kramer want the key to go down the drain, or was it just a single mistake? The sequels provide a semblance of an explanation. One of Jigsaw's apprentices purposely sabotages the test, but in my opinion, that answer kind of sucks. The explanation almost feels like an afterthought, as though the writers wanted to redo or rework the original intent of Saw 2004. But when judging the writing in a movie or TV show, I always try and keep in mind to never attribute to malice what can be explained by ignorance or incompetence. Likely, the minds behind the sequels and prequels were attempting to replicate the shock of the original, and thought that would be an exciting reveal without realizing the future implications. But I believe the answer to the key is staring right at us. The answer was always there, the only problem is to reach it. Every movie after the original Saw must be thrown away. When a writer is crafting a script or novel, sometimes they flesh out the backstory of the characters without including those backstories within the book outside of a few Easter eggs or clues. This is because fitting in every single motivation and childhood sob story of every character that makes an appearance is almost impossible without boring the reader. But from the perspective of a writer, fleshing out the backstory makes the writing easier and helps writers nail down that character. But then, people want a sequel. In quiet reflection or in a meeting, the writer might realize that the backstory is a little weak, or not as flashy as the producing company wants. Other times, the writer might feel that the original scenes convey exactly who or what a character is, and any additional material feels unnecessary. But when more movies are demanded and contracts are signed, the writer must simply make it up. That's what happened with the Saw movies, and the reason why the key is so controversial, because there was already a satisfactory explanation within the original film, yet the sequel's presence muddied those waters. So, for the sake of this video, and for my sanity, the focus will solely be on the original Saw movie. From this point forward, there are no sequels. There are no prequels, no apprentices, or sabotage traps. There is only a bathroom. It is filthy, blood-streaked over tile and dripping with moisture between strings of mold, the smell of feces and piss clogging the nostrils. 2 men lay within this bathroom, one of which is about to awake, drowning and blinded, losing his sole chance of escape within a single moment of fear, all because of the true silent horror of Saw: resentment. On the surface, Saw's plot is simple. A man with tumors eating at his mind and life, with a talent for engineering, wants people to value their lives, needs them to, before his own life is ended. For the people who do not value what they have, he creates tests. Survive the test, you live. Fail, you die.
Hello, Paul.
The first test we witness the beginning and conclusion of is the razor wire maze. A recording left behind at the scene reveals a bit about the victim of that test. Jigsaw is talking to a man named Paul, described as a 46-year-old middle-class male, both healthy and sane, yet apparently recently cut himself with a razor blade. The man is stuck before a giant tunnel filled with razor wire. If Paul doesn't crawl through the maze, the door on the other end will seal shut. But if Paul does climb through, he risks bleeding to death. And that's exactly what happens. Paul dies from blood loss, apparently cutting himself so deeply, it went through the many layers of fat and muscle on his stomach, into his stomach lining, and left behind remnants of stomach acid on the floor below.
So, Mark, if you're so sick, then why do I have so many photos of you up and about?
The second test is the flammable jelly. The unfortunate victim is Mark. Jigsaw claims Mark has been faking a severe illness, defrauding insurance and taking advantage of the people around him who believes he was seriously ill. Mark has been injected with a slow-acting poison and the antidote is within a locked safe. There are numbers written all over the walls, and one particular sequence on the walls is the correct combination to the safe. The main problem is that Mark in the room is slathered in flammable jelly, and his only light source is a candle. The floor is also covered in broken glass, and while Mark attempts to find the combination, he fails and is burned alive. The third test is the most infamous, the reverse bear trap. Amanda, a drug addict, awakens tied to a chair with an engineering contraption strapped around her face. On a TV, Billy the puppet tells Amanda that when the timer finishes, her face will be ripped open, unless she retrieves the key from the stomach of her dead cellmate. Amanda fights to get out of her chair, and once out, the timer starts counting. She locates the body and a knife before realizing the man is still alive. Later, we'll learn the man was injected with an opioid overdose, leading to a case mimicking paralysis. This does not stop Amanda. She stabs the man repeatedly, cutting him open and searching through his organs until she locates the key. This is our first example of an actual survivor of Jigsaw's games, and the first example of a murder within his games. The fourth test is the drill trap. A man named Jeff is locked into a chair with 2 drills positioned on either side of his head, and once the drills are activated, he will die within 20 seconds. He survives when a detective locates him and shoots the drills, stopping the test and saving his life. The fifth test, which almost doesn't really qualify as a test, is the death of that same detective. During a chase scene, Detective Singh steps into a tripwire, pulling the trigger on 4 shotguns above him.
Hello, Mr. Hindle. Or as they called you around the hospital, Zep.
The sixth test is one of the plot twists in the movie. Zep Hiddle, a custodian at the same hospital as Dr. Lawrence, was also injected with a slow-acting poison. Slow-acting poison seems to be a common theme in this movie, and I'm really curious what that poison was, because from what the movie presents, neither of the men that are poisoned exhibit any noticeable symptoms, nor are they repeatedly dosed. And one of the main factors of a slow-acting poison, chemical or otherwise, is repeated exposure over lengthy periods of time that culminates in a worsening symptoms ranging from delirium, nausea, neurological issues, jaundice, which indicates like a liver problem, or hematologic issues, which is like bruising really easily. I'm getting off topic. What was I talking about? Zep Hindle was injected with poison, and his only cure lies in the hands of Jigsaw. His test is to take Dr. Lawrence's family hostage and execute them. Should Lawrence not kill Adam, Zep's job is to kill his wife and daughter, which brings us to the final and most prevalent test, the bathroom. The bathroom test is twofold. The men in the bathroom do work together in the beginning, but they actually have separate tests. For Adam, it's escaping the chain around his ankle in the room. For Lawrence, he must make a decision. Kill Adam and save his family, or spare Adam and condemn his family. Lawrence doesn't kill Adam, instead cutting off his own foot to go search for help, while Adam is left behind for the final twist. The dead body was Jigsaw the whole time. John Kramer informs Adam the key's in the bathtub, but as you know, the key was lost in the beginning of the movie, so Adam tries to pick up a gun and kill Kramer, but Kramer electrocutes him via the chain before Adam can shoot him and leaves Adam to die, ending the film with the iconic line, "Game over." You've probably already noticed, but these tests aren't created equal. Amanda got the easiest test, requiring minimal effort and no aspect of self-harm in the process, while the flammable jelly just feels malicious. It feels resentful. Upon reflection, resentment is present in every single test. In the razor wire maze, Jigsaw distinctly says on the tape, "Did you cut yourself because you truly wanted to die or because you wanted attention?" From personal experience with friends that have self-harmed or attempted the sewer slide, I can confidently say wanting attention is almost never the main reason. Kramer points out that Paul is healthy, sane, middle class, so why would he harm himself? Completely overlooking the truth that often someone looks fine, acts fine, appears fine, and yet is suffering quietly from internal external factors. Furthermore, Kramer's whole shtick, or at least what he presents, is teaching people the value of their lives. He mocks Paul, saying how much blood will you shed to stay alive, basically asking Paul to prove his want to live through self-mutilation. His victim responds by shedding everything, cutting and slicing and skinning himself to the point of dripping stomach acid in his want to survive. But apparently, this is not enough for John Kramer. It will never be enough, because this is not a test. It is a trap. They are all traps, born from a place of deep-rooted resentment towards people. This fundamental truth of the film is given away from the beginning. Recalling my summary of the movie, I claim the plot was one of a man wanting people to value their lives, but that premise is false. Your life is just one of the many things Kramer feels people don't value. He also feels people don't value the items they have, as seen with the victim of the razor wire maze. That man appears to have everything Kramer wants, and yet he squanders it. This is the silent horror that forms the backbone of the original Saw movie. It was never the story of a man teaching others through drastic measures to be grateful for their lives, but the story of a dying man burdened by pain and molded by resentment, taking it out on the people around him. Take the flammable jelly trap. Kramer remarks the victim faking an illness is seen walking up and around, and later we notice that Kramer struggles to walk properly. And then what is in that trap but broken glass scattered all over the floor? There's a peephole in the wall so Kramer can watch a man that lied about the very issue Kramer struggles with cripple and hobbling about, wiping snot and tears from his face. Even the line Jigsaw speaks, "For all the people you've burned with your act, and subsequent death by burning alive," this represents Kramer's resentment towards this person for faking illness, yet being surrounded by people, while John Kramer's dying, yet appears relatively alone. In the drill trap, there's no way for Jeff to survive. It's the only trap in the entire movie that is actually a test for Kramer where Jeff is a test subject for, as John Kramer puts it, for something greater than himself, and that he has given Jeff a purpose. And what about the custodian, Nep Hindle? He was the person who remarked to Dr. Lawrence about John's name in the evaluating room, showing a level of care for Dr. Kramer that we never see again. Yet his payment for that kindness is being spit in the face and forced to hold a family hostage, nearly murdering them both in the process. Over and over and over again, John Kramer reveals his true nature and the true evil of this movie by his actions and the people he picks. Jigsaw has no problem with the death of innocents, in spite of his claim that life has value, as seen with Dr. Lawrence's family, Detective Singh, or Nep Hindle. The third trap is the biggest example of this pattern. The reverse bear trap isn't about Amanda, but the man she kills. That's why her trap is the easiest. Kramer is even kind enough to wait until starting the timer until Amanda is out of her chair. Kind enough to paralyze the man instead of having him tied to another chair and pleading for his life. And kind enough to try and trick Amanda by telling her the man's dead. I don't think Kramer intended for that man to wake up. He told Amanda he was dead to ensure she killed him. The significance of only a single woman to be involved in Jigsaw's games cannot be overlooked because that exposes the target of Kramer's resentment. It's men. Middle-aged or older, with seemingly good lives, healthy bodies, and whole families. From Kramer's perspective, these men are squandering themselves, ungrateful for their lives, both mortal life and lifestyle-wise, and their families. He watches them and thinks, why are they not riddled with tumors? Why are they not crippled and in pain, hobbling around and merely awaiting the end, left to die alone with no one to care? John Kramer's in pain. He's tired. He's fucking miserable and feels he doesn't deserve it. As someone with a debilitating medical condition, one of the hardest things to come to terms with is resentment. You watch other people live out the life you wanted, make mistakes you think you would never make, and are overwhelmed by thoughts like, I wouldn't waste my life like that, I would be better, cherish the things I have, and work hard for the things I want. I understand the pain John Kramer is in, and there is a fork in the road that presents itself insidiously, quiet, almost unnoticeable until you have already formed an answer to the very question. And that question is, will you allow that resentment to stew, making you hateful, unable to be happy for those around you, constantly finding flaws in them or their lives? Or will you fight against that overwhelming emotion and come to the understanding that no one's at fault, there's no one to blame for your condition? Sometimes you can do everything right and still lose. Which finally brings us to the key. The location of the key is simple, elegant in a way. Just as Amanda was not the main target in the reverse bear trap, neither was Adam. It was all about Dr. Lawrence. Adam's escape should have been simple, just as he did not intend for Detective Singh to die, but no matter how much planning one does, outside interference will have an effect on the outcome. Kramer is not upset by this miscalculation. A single mistake amongst an entire elaborate guise is bound to happen in a rational and logical world. Once Dr. Lawrence left, Kramer revealed himself, informed Adam of the key's location, and was prepared to leave. Had Adam asked for help, there might have been two different outcomes. The first, Kramer simply leaves him, affirming his past behavior, uncaring about the loss of life as previously shown, or two, Kramer helps him. Understanding the lost key does not take away from Adam's want to live. Ultimately, it's not the key that condemns Adam, but his attempt at killing Kramer. In the reverse bear trap scene, there's writing on the wall that says, if you try to keep your life for yourself, you will lose it. But if you give your life up to me, you will find true life. John Kramer is a dying man with an ocean's worth of resentment. He feels lost because he has no control over his tumor, but these traps, these games, and these people, these are the things he has control over, and it fills a little bit of that black hole inside him, quelling his anxiety and fear. Despite preaching about the value of life, Kramer contradicts himself with this quote: "If you try to keep your life for yourself, you will lose it." He does not want his victims to learn to be grateful. He wants to punish them, and he wants to be the one with final control, deciding your ultimate fate. Dr. Lawrence claims Kramer's not a murderer because he doesn't kill anyone. Lawrence is an idiot. If I throw a baby into a pool and it drowned, that's murder. If I neglected that baby and it wandered into a pool and drowned, legally, I'd probably get manslaughter. But I and the parents of that baby would consider myself a murderer. My actions killed that baby. If I was a drunk driver that decimated a family of 4, it doesn't really matter whether I wanted that to happen or not. Those people are dead as a result of my actions. John Kramer is a murderer and a serial killer. Yes, the weapon he uses is an elaborate trap that the person might survive, but he's the one that put them in there. That is the chilling horror of this movie, one only seen a few other times in the movies that come after it. Let's pretend there are other Saw movies. There might be a classic kill where a man is killed for the crime of smoking. Many people might find it humorous, going against Jigsaw's supposed code, but I actually feel that this kill fits in perfectly with who John Kramer is. A man drowning in resentment and worsened by either already present narcissistic characteristics or brain tumors impairing his ability to make moral judgments. The world can be so beautiful, and living is a gift, but all Kramer can see is his inability to enjoy that gift and watch the people around him waste it. His victims and traps all represent something that Kramer wants, something they had but didn't appreciate in his eyes. So Kramer decides to take it from them, and has the enjoyment of watching. They shall suffer as he suffers, and they shall feel for a few hours what it feels like to be him every single waking moment. Horror movies where the main antagonist is partially created from the result of medical problems outside of their control, either physically as seen in Saw, 1946 Brute Man, or even the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or something more mental like Relic or The Taking of Deborah Logan, can be such compelling scares because they stem from grounded subjects. Saw is a truly great movie because it peels back the layers of humanity and presents a man that could be realistically anyone dealing with familiar and common emotions like resentment, envy, rage, to the point where many people sympathize with John Kramer, putting him on the pedestal of a vigilante rather than a serial killer. Combine this everyday man's struggle with realistic traps ultimately designed for suffering, and you have created a thought-provoking piece of art and a compelling bad guy. There have been talks about a new Saw movie floating around the last few years, and although no official word from the studio owning the franchise nor the original writers confirmed it, I hope if we do get another movie, the main antagonist will not be a person who enjoys the kills or torture for the sake of enjoying kills or torture, but returning to the old theme that haunted the original, where a person with nothing left but resentment is capable of things that define the word horrifying. Thank you so much, my freaky freaks, for watching. Perhaps I might dive deeper into the official lore of the entire Saw franchise, but for now, if there's a specific horror movie or topic you would be interested in seeing me discuss, especially anything underground or older material from the 1940s, I would love to hear about it. Have a wonderful day, and remember,
I'll think of you when I'm not here, 'cause thinking of people makes them seem near. The friends who know you, love you cheerfully, I do too.